So we finished last week with where we had all gathered, and we were all in this room, and we realized that we had to leave that day, the next day, that we had to go on the journey and cross the Himalayas to get to a helipad to take us to safety. And we went to bed that night as we lied there praying that it wouldn't be rain. And that within 15 minutes of lying down in the bed, the rain started coming down, and it came down like gangbusters. And so as I lied there that evening and I was doing my prayer work about what was happening, I reflected back on what was my intent. And what really became clear to me was that everything that I had done in my life, up to that very moment, everything I had done in my life had prepared me for what was coming. And that just gave me a sense of peace, because I knew that everything that I could ever need was already in me, and all I had to do was take one step forward at a time. And as I took that one step forward, I would remember that I am the individualization of God. I am not just a human, I am the spiritual expression in human form, individualized as Lee. And it was from that point of consciousness that I was able to begin that morning, because when we woke up, we hadn't slept at all. Because we were thinking about the rain, we were thinking about the journey. I was concerned, would all the women make it out? Because some of the women had a hard time walking. And so we woke up that next morning, and I was up all night. Finally, at 4:30, I got up and I went to the meditation hall. And remember the angel I told you about that did yoga for us every morning? Guess who was there that morning? Even though we were supposed to leave at 6, she was there at 4:30. So there were like 6 of us that did this most beautiful spiritual yoga where there was movement, but it was about the breath. You see, yoga is really not about the physical. It is about the breath, because it is the breath that is the pathway to oneness. The breath connects you to life. Life is the way God experiences and expresses itself. And when we connect more into that breath, we really get that divine individualization, that experience of it. And so we went through this hour of yoga, and the rain was still coming down. You could hear it. The whole thing was just pouring rain. You could hear it on the top of the roof because it was a metal roof. So you know what rain sounds like on a metal roof. Well, then we just naturally stood there and we went into our next 2 hours of meditation. So we were supposed to leave at 6. It's 5:30. We just continued in meditation, realizing it was not going to happen at that moment. And in that, we came out of meditation, and the rain was still coming down. And so we went up, and we had our breakfast. And you know what we had, don't you? The same thing we've had every meal, lentils and rice. And the key question was, what color was it this day? And I want you to know, I remember it very clearly, it was yellow. And yellow for me means sunshine. And so when I got that sunshine, I knew things would happen. So we did this, and then we went out afterwards, and we got some of the villagers, and we asked, so what would the paths be like this day? How would they be? Because we were afraid we're going up about 1,000 feet up and down in the Himalayas to make our journey through the mountain to get to the helipad. Well, they said, this is actually a blessing, because the mud will not be as slippery as dry dirt on these new paths. So we agreed that at 10 o'clock we would begin the trek. So 10 o'clock we'd all found our sticks. We all got sticks about this high to us, about this round. Because as you're walking and you're going through the mountain paths, that stick became a lifesaver. You see people carrying sticks. Remember Moses in the 10 Commandments, how he had his staff? It wasn't just to bat people off. It was literally to support you as you go up the mountain. Because there were times when I would slip, that stick would go and it would stop me from sliding. So everyone had their staff. What ended up happening is we decided to go in groups. And we went in groups of 8. And there were 40 of us, so there were 5 different groups. And I think I was in group number 4. And we sent off, as we sent so many ladies with guides, villagers with them, so that they would have someone accompanying them. And you could see people struggling. The beauty was, these young men, we called them our spiritual Sherpas. These young men had patience. they would look at these ladies and they would say, everything's okay. Just sit down, relax. I'm here with you. Trust me, trust me. And these young men, they would maybe be 5'5", 5'4", very thin, 120, 130 pounds, but they had hands that were as strong as vice grips. Because I know one time when I was falling the day before, he grabbed me and he held on to me and stopped me from going over, and it was incredible to feel that surge of strength in this man. I want you to know it took us 6 hours for all of the 5 groups to get through the worst part of the trek. And then we were on the flatlands. And from the flatlands, we had another 2 miles that we went to the dam, and then across the dam, and we went to the helipad there. And I want you to know that when we were going, there was one aspect of that trip that everyone will remember. Because we were about 500 to 700 feet above the river below us, and there was no path. And what they did is they had taken sticks about this big around, and about 12 feet long, and they put these sticks. And then they took sandbags, and they put the sandbags on top of the sticks. And so you're literally walking across these 12 feet, going upward, and right below you is a straight fall into the Ganga River. That was a leap of faith. That is where you believed. When the Sherpa said, it's safe, did you believe the Sherpa? And it was so easy. Once you got on it and you walked, you realized you could do anything. It was almost like the experience of doing a fire walk. Anyone here walk across fire, hot coals? A few of us. It is the most incredible experience. You think you cannot do it. You think those coals will burn you. And you walk across and it's like nothing. But all of our lives, we've been taught to fear that. So when I walked across that path of sandbags for the 3rd time, because I'd done it the other day, I realized there was nothing in the world I needed to fear. Because even if I fell, so what? It's just my human body that I would lose. The part of me that is the divine will go on forever. This is the greatest lesson there. Because we were so steeped in meditation, so steeped in that oneness, the fear really left. And so we went and we gathered and we got across the bridge and we made our way to the refugee camp where the helicopters were. And it was like one of these big army helicopters. You know, you see the big ones that have the 2 propellers, and they're just huge. And you would see there were several thousand people at the helipad. And when we got there, Naranjan, my friend, he spoke Hindi, so we went and talked to the guy, and they arranged that what we would do is we would have the local Indians that were a part of our group. About half of our group was from India, and half of our group was from around the world. We would let the Indians go first because there was a concern that if the foreigners left, they might get pushed down in the shuffle and they wouldn't get out. So we let our brothers and sisters from India go first, and we weren't supposed to go till the next day. But I want you to know that that morning, after breakfast, before we even made the trek, Naranjan and I took a walk on the bank of the Ganga River there. And we did prayer. And we did prayer for the safety of our group. And Naranjan asked for a specific prayer, that the prayer would be that he and I would be helicoptered out of there to a city that had an airport so that we could make our trip back home. We wanted to go from the city to Delhi and then catch a flight out. We had both understood that our journey was now over. The rest of the group wanted to go and take another long trek and go to a different ashram. There were several others in the group that wanted it, but they were sort of not clear. But Naranjan asked for specific prayer on that. So we were there at the helipad, and we're watching our brothers and sisters go. And the Indian people here are just magnificent because the army comes in, and they're giving us food, they're giving us water, they're doing everything they can to help us be comfortable in light of the situation that's happening. I mean, I understand what it means to be a refugee. I understand what it means to have only the clothes on your back and nothing else. And all you're concerned about is your personal safety. So we're watching these people leave, and all of a sudden, the woman who was in charge of the group, the logistics of the group, yelled, "Lee, go to the helicopter, go to the helicopter." So I've got my backpack on, I'm running, and as I'm running, my friend Heidi, who's from Colorado, she's grabbed my hand, and the two of us are running to the helicopter together. And it's about 100 yards, and we get to the helicopter, and you hear this, Heidi, Heidi, come back. And it's Catherine calling Heidi back, and Heidi lets go of my hand and turns around and starts going back. The next thing I know, Naranjan is walking up to me, and he's going on the helicopter with me. So we board the helicopter, and we're sitting right across from each other on the windows. And he smiles at me, and he says, pray, Lee, pray. And so there's about 8 of us now crammed in the helicopter, just 2 from our group, and the rest are other locals that are being helicoptered out. So we're supposed to go 10-minute helicopter ride to an army base where there's a big refugee camp, and we're going to spend the night in the refugee camp, and then we're going to go from there, find out what we're going to do next. And as we're flying, you're there, and there's a sense of relief that comes over you because you realize you're going to a place where there's a possibility of being safe. You're not isolated on this little cove on the banks of a river that can disappear at any time. So there's a safety, there's a relief that comes over you. And as we're flying, we see the army base, and there's all these helicopters on this huge helipad, and we see we're starting to circle. They circle, and they're coming down like this. And Naranjan goes, this is in Italy, this is in Italy. I said, don't worry, don't worry. And we got down, we were like 20 feet from the ground. And all of a sudden, the helicopter started circling and going up. The next thing you know, we were flying for the next hour and 20 minutes following the Ganga River. And as we followed the Ganga River, we saw 35, 40 landslides. We saw 5 huge suspension bridges that trucks would go over, totally destroyed. We saw avalanches where the roads had gone. There was no infrastructure anymore. There was no possible way. The journey we made for 12 hours on that about 11 days earlier in the cabs, it was impossible to do. I don't know how they're going to rebuild those roads. They were covered in landslide. Everything was wiped out. And so we're going along, and all of a sudden, you see lights because it's now dark. And as you see the lights, Naranjan looks at me and says, this is where the airport is. And so we get there and we land, and we get off of it, and the army personnel guide us, the 10 of us on this helicopter, they guide us into like a triage center. And nurses come up, and the first thing they do is they give us food, they give us water, and the next thing you know, they're taking our blood pressure because everyone's got something going on, because everyone's been in a catastrophe. I'll share with you the power of meditation. My blood pressure being taken through all of this was 114/70. That's the power of meditation. Normally, when I go to the dentist, my blood pressure goes through the roof. Interesting thing, I went to the dentist when I came back, my blood pressure was like 114/72. I was no longer afraid of the dentist. So we're there, and Naranjan says, okay, I've got a phone number. So he called the phone number, and he called parents of one of the people that was on the retreat with us, one of the locals. And so lo and behold, they come and they pick us up. And we are escorted by the military to their car because they want to make sure that we're safe. So we get into this, it was like a Toyota RAV4. And over there, a Toyota RAV4, that's like a luxury vehicle. So we get out and we're being taken to their home for the evening. And we go to their home, and they live in a luxury condo. And I don't mean India luxury, I mean U.S. luxury. So we go up to the 4th floor of this condo through an elevator. Haven't seen an elevator since we left the United States. And as we go up the elevator, we get out and we go into their condo. It is pristine. And they say, your room is over here. And we go, and the room is like a suite. It's got a king-size Tempur-Pedic mattress. It has a marble enclosed glass shower. And there, on the right, was a Western-style toilet. It took all of the trip until that very moment for it to finally appear, because I was finally ready to accept it. So we got there, and then Naranjan and I were there, and as we talked about what foods did we want to have. My favorite foods in the world that I wanted was tomato. I wanted avocado. I wanted pasta. Those are the things I craved the most. We came out from showering and changing our clothes. This beautiful little Indian mother had avocado, tomato, pasta, and yet my favorite food of all, fresh mango. We didn't say a word. It was just created. And we sat down with them and we talked with these two beautiful people about spirituality, about this journey for like 4 hours. And they said, we would like you to join us for this dinner tonight. And we said, do we have to get dressed up? This is all we've got. She says, no, you're fine. So we go into the bowels of the city. When I talk about bowels, we're going back into the city to this place that is gated. It's got stone walls and gated. We go inside, and it's like the wealthiest man of the city. He owns all of these educational facilities. Education is one of the biggest businesses in India. There are university or trade schools everywhere. Well, he was like the Godfather. He literally sat at his chair by himself, and everyone would come up and greet him, and then all the servants would bring in. So we were sitting on couches, on these very beautiful couches, and the servants would come up. We had like a 30-course meal. We were treated like royalty. You see, India is the most phenomenal place because you're going to experience the full gamut of life. And when you're aware, you can appreciate the difference between what the wealthy are experiencing and what the poor are experiencing. And I want you to know something that was really clear. When you looked at the gentleman who was the wealthy man, and I go back and I look at the Sherpa who guided and helped me out of the Himalayas, my Sherpa was 1,000 times happier than the wealthy man. He was in a state of gloom, just like you see in the United States, because it's not the money. It's a state of consciousness. This young Sherpa who was 20 years old, he just knew his life and he loved it. He loved going into the Himalayas. He loved climbing. It was nothing for him to put 100 pounds on his back because we watched him do it with suitcases. He strapped 2 suitcases, full suitcases on his back, and he did the trek. And he got joy. He never complained. It was a state of mind. It was an expectation that this is life and I'll be taken care of. That was the beauty of the adventure. You will always be taken care of when you expect it. And so the next morning, after the best night's sleep we've had, we woke up. We had a great breakfast again. They took us to the airport. We bought our tickets and we got a flight to Delhi. And we flew to Delhi and we said, boy, this is great. So we get into the Delhi airport, and now Niranjan has to make his arrangements on his airline, and he finds out that he can. I'm on Etihad Airlines. They don't even have a booth. They don't even have a booth. I tried calling. There was no way. And Niranjan didn't want to leave me because I didn't speak Hindi. And not speaking Hindi is a disadvantage in India. The English they speak, you'll pick up one every 5 or 6 words, and it's very difficult for communication. And I finally said to him, I said, you've got to be with your family. You go. You be with your family. What I will do is I will get a cab. I will take it to a hotel 4 miles away, just outside the airport. I'll take care of my arrangements there. I'm okay. Trust me. So we hugged and we embraced, and he went off. And so I got in my cab, thinking everything is great, and I got to the hotel. It was a beautiful hotel. It was a very nice hotel, and yet the beggars were everywhere. The contrast, you cannot eliminate the contrast no matter where you go. It's everywhere. Contrast is there. And I wasn't there long enough to become numb to it. I was still so present that I was aware of the contrast, and I could see it. When I went into the hotel, I went to the concierge. I said, can you help me with my airline tickets? And he says, oh, we can't do that here. And we went on and we talked about that. And then he said, come with me. And he walked me down the street, about 4 blocks through, you name it, we walked through it. And we went into this little shop that you would never know was anything. And there was a Sikh. And the Sikhs are Indian people who practice a special spirituality, and they wear the turban. That's their main distinguishing mark is the turbans. They never cut their hair. They never cut their beards. And so I walked in and we were talking and he said, well, I don't know if I can do it, but you let me have till tomorrow. And went on like that and I just didn't feel good. There are certain times, though, when you got back to the hotel, something said to me, I know a person who can take care of me. I need to get in touch with this individual. So I went to the hotel manager and I said, can I use your hotel internet? And he says, we don't do that. I said, please, I just need it for a moment. And he said, yes. So I got on the internet and I sent an email off to my wife. And I said, here's my email. Would you let me know when it comes in? Within 20 minutes, I had an email back that all my flights had been changed and I would be leaving in 2 days. See, it was divine guidance that said, don't wait for the outside. Know how you're being driven on the inside. And so I was up in my room. I was in this really beautiful room. I was up in my room and I went into meditation. And when I went into meditation, I just went into gratitude. And I started reflecting on every aspect of the journey and all the things that I had to be grateful for, all the people. And what I realized, that there was an emptiness in me. And I didn't know what that emptiness was. But the emptiness was I never said goodbye to 38 people that I'd been on this journey with. You see, we're so rushed. There was no closure. And I really got to reflect on the idea how closure is so important for our lives. When my mother died, the most important thing was that Mom and I had closure, that we had said all that we wanted to say. It's about when you leave a job, you want to make sure you have closure with all the people that you love. When your children move out, you want to have closure with them. And so I reflected on that. And I said, oh, this journey has been the greatest thing in the world. And I thought to myself, did I meet my intentions? Did I have the trip of my life? The answer was yes. Did I become unattached? I left almost all of my material goods in India. I left all fear behind. One of the things I'll share with you that I didn't share the other day was that on the day before we went through the hike, Niranjan and I went into the Ganga River, a part that was not, it was a tributary of it, so it wasn't the main one stirring. And I literally said, as we stood in the river, we had our pants rolled up to here, and we were in the river, I did a prayer that we released everything that was holding us back and that the river was washing it away. Little Mary Elsie, who just had her baby a couple weeks ago, she said she had a vision prior to me going that I would be in the Ganga River in white robes and that I would be held and I would be baptized by the Ganga. Well, it wasn't quite that way, but it was a cleansing. And that cleansing was very powerful because it was a conscious choice. It wasn't the symbolic act. It was the conscious choice of saying, I'm letting go of this stuff. And so when I was in my room, I sat there and I said, okay, I can breathe. I can go home. I'm safe. I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. And I realized that the next day was my birthday. And I said, so how will I celebrate my birthday? And I went downstairs to the concierge and I said, I would like to go to the Taj Mahal tomorrow. I would like to hire a cab just for me. I would like my own personal guide. And I would like to leave by 9 in the morning and I would like to be home like by 5. And he says, all taken care of, Mr. Wolak. So I planned the most perfect birthday gift I could give myself. And next week, I will tell you how that perfect gift took me into a deeper experience than I had in the Himalayas. Because just when I thought the experience was over, I'd only found that I'd only gone so deep. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button. and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.